From Wabash, Indiana, it's the Summer Nationals Truck and Tractor Pull, sponsored by Jasper Performance Engines. And our first puller is Henry Piper from Mount Vernon, Illinois.
Here in the 5,500-pound super stock tractor category, the trick to get off the starting line with a minimum of tire spin. And as you can see, the 87-year-old has a great pull going.
He does, Brett. He's crossed the 250-foot mark and finally is forced to stop as the red flag goes down. They'll measure to see, and Henry comes in at 273 feet. Our next puller, Kenny Sanders from Dayton, Iowa.
Look at the smoke. 4 turbochargers, 1,700 diesel horsepower for the Enforcer, but problems right off the line. It almost sounded, Ted, like the turbochargers were nowhere near full boost when he let out the clutch.
Well, he ends up at about 76 feet, and it's a shame. You know, this guy finished #1 in the nation in 1993.
Well, it's not going to happen here, but Anthony Hart now has the door wide open for him.
Anthony driving the first John Deere we've seen in this 5,500-pound super stock division.
The Hart's Desire machine using up a lot of this course. He's struggling to keep it in the center where he thinks traction is best. And that's all she wrote. 285 feet 7 inches, though, #1.
Let's take one more look with our Jasper pull replay, and you'll see the wheels up from this 5,500-pound super stock tractor.
It was a beautiful launch, but watch as the machine starts drifting to the right. He'll land the front end to just a touch to steer it back over into the center, which is where he had the sled lined up. That's what made the difference.
This is Jim Osterholt from Portland, Indiana. That's not too far away, so he could be considered as a hometown favorite. He's driving an Alice Chalmers.
Again, nowhere near enough RPM to make those turbochargers produce the extra 700 horsepower they'll be giving that diesel engine. And at 17 feet, he's going to have to take it, Ted.
Well, a capacity crowd here at the fairgrounds on hand for this exciting truck and tractor pull. And our next puller will be Richard Garb from Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Now, this is an Alice Chalmers, a lighter weight tractor, but you can see it makes it that much more difficult to drive. Trying to keep the front end down to steer it away from the outer boundary mark. Garb trying to steer back into the track and gets it out to 268 feet. And that sure isn't going to take over the lead.
That won't get the job done. Maybe this man from Hillsboro, Kentucky will as he pulls into play. We'll look at Richard Garb one more time. Look how out of shape that tractor is as he's all over that 30-foot course, Brett.
Yeah, the driver of the Orange Crush, like I said, just constantly feathering the throttle to get the front wheels back on the ground so he can steer. You can't steer when the wheels are in the air.
This is Mike Savvy from Hillsboro, Kentucky.
Oh, and there's massive internal failure.
We'll get back to more pulling action in just a minute. Hi, everyone. I'm Ted Jones. Hope you're enjoying this Jasper Summer National event. Let's take a look at exactly what entails the American Tractor Pullers Association legal pulling course. First of all, it's 30 feet wide. They have a 30-foot width. Now, if the vehicle doing the pulling touches one of these disqualification side marker boundaries, they are disqualified and the pull is disallowed. Doesn't matter what the sled being towed does. However, in order to have a full pull, that is 300 feet, the sled has to cross this full pull 300-foot marker line. We'll be back with more after this.
Coming soon to a town near you, pulling to a town near you, pulling action as it was meant to be. The Jasper Engines and Transmissions Pulling Series. The nation's highest paid pullers are always on the road, giving the fans the best and most competitive pulling possible. If you like what you have seen, then look us up in the following cities: Knoxville, Tennessee, Madisonville, Kentucky, Manassas, Virginia, and St. Louis, Missouri. The Jasper Pulling Series. The best is coming to you. For ticket information, call 502-231-2094.
The Jasper Summer Nationals Truck and Tractor Pull from the Wabash County Fairgrounds. We'll have more 5,500-pound tractors in just a moment.
The very sight of this much corn brings to mind America's heartland. And here in northern Indiana, it also brings to mind a form of motorsports that actually predates the automobile. It's the sport of tractor pulling, whose origins, believe it or not, remain in the horses, the incredibly strong plow horses that were an integral part of the American farm in the last century. Back then, it wasn't unusual for farmers to challenge each other's horse teams in a battle of strength that involved pulling a specified amount of weight over a certain distance with a skid. But in the 1920s, when the horses gave way to a much stronger piece of farm equipment, the tractor, that battle continued, but on a mechanical level. Nowadays, the sport of tractor pulling is indeed one of the single largest forms of racing, especially in the rural heartland. And we're here in northern Indiana to bring you the absolute best in what is now one of the most technologically advanced sports you'll ever see in racing.
And, Brett, this is a testimonial to that. Here's a guy with a 4-cylinder tractor that has 3 turbochargers. John Hall from Wabash, Wisconsin.
The rare Minneapolis Moline, a tremendous amount of torque, and that's why the front end is staying up that long. He's got it right down the center. Of course, it's going to be right at the full pull line. Man, is this one going to be close to 300 feet.
Close, but not quite enough at 295 feet. Look at that, 8 inches. And this is a game of inches without question. Our next puller, Jim Acton from Lynn, Indiana.
The Case Internationals have an awful lot of RPM, but you got to be able to use it right off the line, and that's the problem that Acton's running into. I'll tell you, these are such amazing machines. Here's Bill Stevens with a little more information on the incredible tractors.
Well, even though the rules are the same for all of the 5,500-pound tractors that are competing here at Wabash, the appearance of the tractors really differ quite a bit. Here's the Case International that belongs to Jim Eckenrod of New Hampton, Iowa, and it looks pretty stock. Obviously, it's been modified quite a bit, but you don't have to use too much imagination to picture Jim behind the wheel pulling his plow through the cornfield. And then you have this machine over here that belongs to Rich and Missy Garb. Notice that triple stack air cleaner. This Alice Chalmers tractor has been modified highly, both outside and inside, but the paint job is what everybody comments on. Orange Crush, and why not? With this bright orange paint job, this tractor is easy to spot. Now let's take a closer look at some of the rules that the competitors in the 5,500-pound tractor class will adhere to.
Actually, the most amazing thing is that the 7,500-pound tractors, we'll see a little later in the show, and the 5,500-pound tractors are nearly identical. The biggest thing you'll notice the use of turbochargers. They're allowed 4 of them.
That's right. And I'll tell you, the stock appearance on these things is very important to the competitors.
This is Jim Eckenrod from Dayton, Iowa. 4 of those turbochargers, and they're estimating 1,700 horsepower, Brett.
He's got more speed down to the finish line than anybody has had so far. He's out of there. The first full pull. Listen to the crowd. That's what they wanted to see.
The crowd reacts to who probably will win this class, Jim Eckenrod, with a full pull. And we'll look at it one more time with our Jasper pull replay. Oh, the wheel's way in the air.
That's just an indication of torque. That shows that he had everything hooked perfectly. The wheel spin was right for the weight of the sled, which right now is at 30,000 pounds. And he's not the only guy that can win this. If anybody else goes past that finish line, we'll take everybody who does into a pull-off round. Here's Bill with a look at the Moonshiner.
I'm down here in the pits for the Superstock tractors here at Wabash, Indiana, next to the 1960 International 460 tractor called Moonshiner that belongs to Rick Ross. Some guys run in the 5,500-pound class, other guys the 7,500-pound class. Well, last year, Rick couldn't make up his mind, so he ran in both. Rick, I know the name of your tractor is Moonshiner, but last year a better name might have been Double Trouble, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty good runner last year. I won the Superstock Points Championship in the 7,500 Superstock class and was runner-up in the 5,500 and won the Hoosier State Puller of the Year Superstock. So, it's a pretty good year.
What do you have to do to the tractor to compete in both of those weight classes?
You basically just have to add weights to it. We add regular tractor weights to the frame, to weight brackets on the front and rear, and sometimes in the belly section of the tractor.
Some of the guys in your class run diesel engines, but you have an alcohol motor.
Yeah, I'd prefer alcohol. If you get them right, you can make a little more horsepower with them.
How'd you get into this?
Well, I started out pulling garden tractors when I was 12 years old, and we were running those on nitromethane, and I worked my way up through the mini-rod division with alcohol-fueled tractors and just took the natural course and kept right on going.
Well, you know, it's funny how life is. Rick mentioned that he began racing when he was 12 years old, and look at this. Today, he drives a tractor that has a rear tire. It's probably taller than he was when he started.
Almost taller than Bill is now, Ted.
You know, the amazing thing, this guy's only got 2 turbochargers, and he's got that 4-cylinder engine out to 301 inches.
But he's got alcohol fuel, which cools those turbochargers, and that's why he's able to make this kind of power. He's getting down there near the finish line.
But not quite across the finish line at 271-plus feet. So, Jim Eckenrod, the only man with a full pull thus far. Here's our next competitor, Randy Reitz from Princeton, Wisconsin, with a 3088 International tractor and 3 turbochargers.
I'll say this will be a wheel standard take, because the Internationals, look, I was just going to say, have that incredible wheel speed. And it may have a little too much. He doesn't have the front end up where he would like it to be. He's still going to be way down there, though, churning the dirt.
Very close. Oh, 296 feet and 11 inches, and the crowd approves of that. Less than 4 feet away from a full pull.
And you have to remember, the later we get in the first round of pulling, the more that track gets churned up. So finding a spot on the track where traction is going to be is more difficult, and that's what made that pull impressive.
Here's a guy that's a diesel. He calls it the smoker. Wonder why. Ken McPhillip from right here in Wabash, Indiana, the local hero.
Yeah, the speed of the exhaust is just incredible. I mean, there's so much work going on inside that little engine right now with the turbocharging. In fact, it was almost too much. He had a lot of wheel speed all the way down, Ted.
Well, he's ranked number 2 in the points, and he pulls 278 feet and brings his own fan club with him.
They're backing him all the way at this one. That was a great pull considering the track conditions. And, you know, Darren Smith coming up next is like any other puller. He can line that sled up anywhere in that 30-foot lane he wants to, wherever he thinks traction's best. Over to the side, in the center, it doesn't matter. That's where he's going to have to start looking.
This is the guy that could go another full pull right here because he's ranked number 1 right now in the points.
This is the top-running Ford tractor in the nation right now, the 5,500-pound class. He's on a good one. It's moving around. He drops the front end to steer it a couple of times. He's going down there, Ted.
He's not going to make it. The wheels spin. He stops his forward motion. He gets the red flag and 293 feet. The Jasper Summer Nationals is being brought to you by Jasper Engines and Transmissions, and by Balco of Cincinnati, and by Lucas Oil Products.
Jim Eckenrod is the winner in the 5,500-pound tractor class, and you really were the class of the field, the only driver with a full pull today.
We got lucky, I think, and we also had a good run. The tractor performed well for us, and we rode it out, but we're just thankful it turned out the way it did.
As the run goes, was it tricky? Was it easy? And when did you know you were going to go to the distance?
It was a little tricky. I didn't drive it hard enough coming off the line, but I felt like about 280 it settled down, and I was going to take it out.
Will the victory today move you up in the points?
I think it's going to help. I think I was currently in 8th, and today's got to help quite a bit.
Stay tuned. We'll have one of the 2 truck classes pulling here today when we return. Welcome back to the Jasper Summer Nationals, coming your way from Wabash, Indiana, part of the Jasper Pulling Series. We're ready now for the 6,200-pound super modified trucks, and our first puller is Gary Harden from Kentucky.
One of the most amazing vehicles you'll see in this class because it is so underpowered. It's a carbureted machine in a class that allows superchargers, and all original Willys pickup. And he's got a pretty good run going. There goes the front end up in the air at the end of the pull. That's the signature of these super modifieds.
He doesn't move any further, so he has to stop at 205 feet. You're looking at the next puller now. This is Daryl Varner from Midway, Kentucky, a 1989 Chevrolet, as we watch that funny car-style body come down.
Yeah, well, it's coming down over a motor that ain't Chevrolet, Jones. That's a supercharged, fuel-injected aluminum Chrysler Hemi engine. And that's legal in this category. All these trucks are supercharged 2,000 horsepower monsters with power going to the rear wheels only. But they have to have a full stock appearing truck body. And Varner's got that. But this thing is a monster.
My favorite rule out of all of it, no cubic inch limit. I love it. Look at the wheel stand for the rare breed of Varner as he continues to pull down the course. Finally, he'll stop it.
That has to be number 1. Yep, 279. That'll put him in the lead. Looking at the replay, you can see how much he had in wheel speed. It was absolutely perfect balance. I think, actually, he may have stayed into the throttle a little harder than he wanted at the end, and that caused him to dig in.
Our next puller is Billy Bland from Litchfield, Kentucky, a 1989 Chevrolet he calls the Alcoholic.
Long wheelbase on this truck. Again, that part is unlimited, but he blows it up. Oh, look at the broken fuel line on the front of the truck.
Running one of the biggest Chevrolet engines in the entire class, Jeff McPherson is up next. He's from Circleville, Ohio, with a Ford he calls the Bean Bandit.
A killer in the indoor circuit. He's got a great pull going here. His father is a longtime tractor champion, but he digs it in just shy. Ted, I think the end of that course, 282 feet or so, is starting to get pretty chewed up. You're going to have to use your head to get past that point.
This is tough. Here comes a Chevrolet S10 for you small truck fans, driven by Danny Sullivan. No relation to the racer.
Actually, the whole Sullivan family's been doing this for over 40 years. The young gun Chevy S10 wheels up. He's got a good pull going. He's trying to find a place to keep it hooked up and digs it in just before, I think, the finish line. Yeah, look at that, low, 1.5 feet away.
Our next puller will be Rich Sandiford from Cincinnati, Ohio. And with our Valco puller profile, here's Bill Stevens.
Well, unless you're familiar with truck pulling, you've probably never seen a pickup truck like this one. This is a 6,200-pound, super-modified, two-wheel drive truck, and it is quite a piece. In fact, one of the most popular classes in the sport. But believe it or not, there are a lot of things about this truck that make it similar to funny cars in drag racing. Yep, look at that. The body tilts up like a funny car, but on this rig, it's powered. With a funny car, elbow grease gets that body up. And beyond the body, there are other similarities that make this truck, well, closer to a drag racing automobile than you might think.
Well, actually, this motor that we're running in this truck is a Keith Black block with Brad Anderson cylinder heads. The engine is prepared by Rick Hickman, and most of the drag racers will recognize Rick's name. It's a 565 cubic inch with a 1471 high helix blower on it.
The drivetrain in this truck from the flywheel back is pretty sophisticated. Try to explain it to us.
Well, the clutch hooks directly to the crankshaft. It's a 4-disc Crowler clutch. It runs through a short drive shaft into a mid-mounted transmission. The transmission the range is selected before we make the pull. It allows us to go underdrive or overdrive, but essentially turns at engine speed. After going through the transmission, we go directly to the rear end, which is a 38,000-pound Rockwell, very similar to a semi-truck rear end. And then after we go through the differential, there's planetaries and inside the wheel hubs, which gives us about a 22-to-1 ratio.
Well, for a power-hungry guy like me, this is the place to be, sitting behind a 2,200 horsepower Keith Black Hemi. Want you to see how much weight there is on the chassis of this truck just to keep the nose down during the run. The reason for that? Because this truck has to pull 50,000 pounds, 300 feet to be a winner.
Rich Sandiford will try and pull that sled loaded down right now, Brett.
Boy, listen to the RPM. Boy, he really has the wheel speed up. He's got a great one going. It's going to be right down there near the finish line. 298.4 is the mark to beat.
Oh, just missed it. 296 feet. He'll put him in second place.
2 feet away.
Here comes Rick Ertel from Cedar Grove, Indiana, with his bow tie madness, a 1984 Chevrolet. Take a look at the front suspension on that truck.
Take a look at the valve covers coming through the hood. That's the lowest front end I've ever seen on a pulling truck. And he's keeping the front end way down. He's starting at a low RPM. He's going to try and manhandle the weight all the way down there. It sounded like a fuel system was going berserk down there, and that's going to kill his chances. Ted, that may have been a good decision there, because low RPM on a churned-up track might be the way to go.
One thing about it, Brett, he definitely had the front end down, and it just might have worked, but like you said, I think he had some engine problems. Here's our next puller, Don Finney from Paris, Illinois, another S10 Chevy.
Little town to the northwest of Terre Haute, Indiana, the up-and-gone Chevrolet. See, now he's keeping it down on the ground. I think they're going to try and manhandle it down to the finish line, and it's going to be close again. 298.4, that's the mark to beat.
He had it going. Actually, had he kept it straight, it probably would have been a full pull. As we look at the Jasper pull replay, you can begin to see him pulling off to the left severely. And I think that's what defeated him without question. We have more of the two-wheel drive trucks coming up. Stay with us. The Jasper Summer Nationals truck and tractor pull coming to you from Wabash, Indiana. Our next puller will be the tough cookie of Dave Porky Sullivan, the brother of Danny Sullivan, who we saw pull a little earlier in the show.
Well, here in the 6,200-pound category, that's what the truck has to weigh, not more, not less. Superchargers permitted in these extended wheelbase entries, and here goes Porky. He's keeping his front end on the ground like everybody else. He's going to be down there as well, but Ted, the top end is getting chewed up. That's how we're going to see everybody approach the rest of this course.
Our next puller will be a 1924 Ford that is a part of a two-truck team. With more on that, here's Bill Stevens.
Believe it or not, the truck that's behind me right here at this truck pull has a NASCAR connection, and it's because of the engine that's sitting in between the fender wells. In there is a genuine 429 Ford semi-Hemi engine. You might remember back in the 60s, it was the rage of NASCAR. It's rare indeed. However, the engine in this 34 Ford may be even rarer. It's a genuine 427 Ford overhead cam engine, and yep, once again, it was quite the thing in the 1960s in NASCAR competition. Both of these trucks belong to Joe Smolik and Joe Smolik Jr. of North Judson, Indiana. I got a two-wheel drive machine and a four-wheel drive machine. Tell us the differences between them.
Well, the two-wheel drive has a double overhead cam engine, which does not have no push rods or no lifters. The other one is a kind of a Boss type motor. We had it custom built. It's all aluminum. The complete engine's all aluminum. And at one time it was 704 cubic inch.
Which motor is more powerful?
The 704, the four-wheeler.
About how much power is it making?
Well, not sure. Over 1,500 horse.
A lot of guys don't run engines like this in this class. Why did you guys decide to go this route?
Yeah, we want to stick with the Ford and the basics of the big Ford motors and all that. We just want to be Ford. That's what we're running.
You're Ford guys.
That's right, Ford.
You must get some great comments when people come over and see the trucks for the first time.
All the time.
What do they say?
This is unbelievable. You can't believe it. You know, big motors and it's unbelievable.
Well, there are a lot of words you could use to describe the two Ford trucks that belong to the Smoliks. Rare? Mm-hmm. Unusual? Sure. Outrageous? Yep. And even plush. Or how about comfy?
Right, Bill. I never heard of a truck being called plush and comfy in a truck and tractor pull.
Hey, how about valuable? I mean, let's face it, I don't know which is more rare, the single overhead cam engine here or an original all-steel 24 Ford cab.
And Joe Smolik's going to give it a good shot. He's keeping the front end down, Brett.
Yep, that's what it's going to take. You don't want to get too much wheel speed because you'll just start churning the dirt up. That's where it breaks loose. Right down around 210 feet. It actually ended up being 220. That's where you're getting into the tricky stuff. And speaking of tricky, here's the guy that went under the name of Tricky Dick for years, including when he won an outdoor national tractor championship.
And that man is Dick McPherson from Circleville, Ohio, with his 1924 Ford Bucket Team.
This thing is awesome. Notice how far forward the engine is over the front axle to balance that way perfectly. He's got a great one going. He's got a great one going.
He's going to be all the way a full pull. First one in this class.
I don't believe it. He managed to negotiate that tricky, chewed-up surface down there. There's a little smoke that came with that run. He may have burned a piston or two, but still a great run.
Here comes Danny Hebert from Bowling Green, Missouri, 1989 Chevy S10. He calls the old Jack Daniels.
This is a massive engine in this thing, almost 600 cubic inches of Chevrolet supercharged on alcohol. He's got a good one going.
But not all the way. 283 feet will not get the job done. So Dick McPherson is the leader right now. You're looking at Jim Lyons, six-time world champion for the ATP. As a matter of fact, he's the winningest puller in ATP history. And with more on Jim, let's visit right now with Bill Stevens.
6,200-pound, four-wheel drive modified pickup trucks in truck pulling are pretty simple machines when you look at them. I mean, you've got a chassis and a body, a very stark interior, four wheels, and a big engine up front. So you wouldn't think it would cost very much to compete in this kind of motorsport, right? Wrong.
Oh, it just went out of hand. It's so much different. We started out with old stock frames and stock chassis. Now we got the tubular chassis. Engler built this chassis for us, I don't know, a couple years ago, so it's all chrome moly. So that's how much we've went. We've more like drag cars or sprint car guys.
If somebody wanted to go truck pulling with a truck like yours, how much could they expect to spend?
Probably $75,000.
Without a sled attached to this truck, how fast do you think it could really go with this engine?
Probably not real fast, probably 50 mile an hour.
Why is that?
Because the gear ratio is so low in it.
But if you had a different set of gears, you could probably go a whole lot faster.
Oh, we could gear it to run, 200 mile an hour, but it wouldn't pull that sled either.
Well, there's about 2,000 horsepower under the hood of Jim's truck, and yeah, I think I'd pay to see this truck going 200 miles an hour without that sled on the back. But before it can do that, I think Jim would have to work on the aerodynamics a little bit.
Not to mention the amount of weight that would be hanging on the front end. Boy, it'd be fun to steer, wouldn't it? I'll tell you what, as a driver of modified production eliminator machines in a quarter mile on asphalt, he was a killer. Let's see if Jim Lyons can... Oh, he's got the front end up. He may have guessed this one wrong, Ted.
Way off to the left, almost out of bounds, finally comes to a stop at 269 feet. Not impressive for a six-time world champ.
Boy, did you see his face? He was not happy with that one at all. Everybody went the conservative route, and it worked. He tried to overpower the track, and it just can't take it anymore, Ted.
And our next puller is T.J. Tatum from Bardstown, Kentucky.
Straight as an arrow, but I don't know if it's going to be good. I think he may have actually gone out of bounds down there. We'll have to look at it. Yep, sure enough. He did touch the white outer boundary line, and that means simply go home. But it also means that Dick McPherson's the winner, and Bill's got him.
The winner in the two-wheel drive 6,200-pound truck class is Richard McPherson. Full pull. Nice going.
Thank you, thank you.
Tell us about the run.
Oh, it was, we had the two trucks, and it really gives us an advantage over with the two trucks. We put the one truck on the one side of the track, and the track was just a little hard. He didn't get a hold, made a bad run, so we watched the class run. I moved the other side, and it gave us a little advantage over the rest of them.
The only driver to run a full pull. Must be nice not to have a pull-off facing you.
Well, we thought we'd have a pull-off. We've been having a lot of motor trouble. We didn't do the motor any good that trouble. We're leaning on it really hard, and we probably hurt some pistons that run.
Congratulations on a great win.
Thank you.
And we'll have more when we return from the tractors. We step up to the 7,500-pound class. Stick around. Wabash, Indiana, our Jasper pulling series continues with the Jasper Summer Nationals truck and tractor pull. And our next class up, the 7,500-pound super stock tractor.
Readjusting the weight transfer machine known as the Sled, and that means they're putting more weight on it. A heavier tractor, but with more power here in the 7,500-pound class.
And this is Scott Teepin from Crothersville, Indiana. And he goes out of bounds instantly. A big problem. Let's take one more look at it with our Jasper pull replay. You can see the tractor begin to pull violently off to the right there. Scott can't do a thing about it.
Well, Scott was trying to get out of the throttle he's taking a ride there. Scott was trying to get out of the throttle to land the front end and steer it, but by the time he got the front end down, he was already out of bounds. And the officials are saying, hey, next time, steer away from the red and white shirts, will you?
Now, we had an unusual thing on board. That unusual thing is called Steve Grind, who was our sled cam, courtesy of Valco, and he went along for a wild ride.
Yeah, I bet you Steve has a whole new perspective of this sport now.
Here's our next puller. This is Doug Leake from Oppidyke, Illinois.
Now, Doug Leake is very, very tough in the outdoor circuit. Doesn't run in the indoor stuff very much during the winter, but during the summer months, he is brutal.
Is this guy actually a college professor, Brett?
And from what I understand, he still is actively teaching. He's got a great pull going here. Look at this thing.
Almost all the way down. Not quite a full pull, though. Short, 288 feet. Not bad.
I'll tell you, the crowd is appreciative. That was a great one. And you know what? That little tractor has some special significance on the next ride.
With more on that subject, let's go to Bill Stevens.
Well, that tractor there is not going to compete here at Wabash this weekend, but the tractor it's sitting on will. The 1992 Case IH tractor that I'm standing next to, this beautiful 7240 model, is a tractor that has, well, a beautiful airbrush mural on the side on this engine side panel. This engine side panel, believe it or not, is part of the rules that dictate this class. And to find out more of the rules that the 7,500-pound class tractors have to adhere to, we talked to this tractor's owner, Coleman Wheatley.
Your 75 would be no different than the lighter and or heavier, but the rule says we must carry the manufacturer's block, transmission case, and rear, meaning in turn that we can do anything internally that we see fit.
You can run as big an engine as you want?
That's correct.
What about the go-fast pieces, turbos, things like that?
Any size turbo, any gear ratio that we so desire inside the case, we can pretty well match and mismatch till we get our own system like we're satisfied with.
Tell us about your tractor specifically.
Well, I got a Hypermax designed engine in here. It was the first one of this cubic inch, and it's quite large, that he designed. We put this engine in 2 years ago, and we were expecting some problems because we didn't know how much he had dyno tested it, but fortunately it may go to heck tonight, but we've had 2 good years out of this motor.
Somebody told me that you've got the biggest engine in the class.
Well, rumors are around, and that's a possibility, but, you know, big is big, little is little, and who knows what's what got where he is.
How many cubes is it?
Oh, it's bigger than a small engine. It's not as big as the biggest engine, but it's close.
So you're not going to tell us?
Well, I'm not going to say what we talked about a while ago, but you're catching on.
Quite a character, and here he comes from Shelbyville, Indiana, Brett.
The mystery motor, and he's got the front end up, but you can see it's going up a little too violently. He's going to try and feather the throttle now. Now watch out for that soft dirt down there. It's a great one.
He goes all the way, a full pull for Coleman Wheatley, and that's 7130 Case International, and the crowd appreciates Coleman Wheatley.
The crowd is so knowledgeable here in the Midwest of these machines. They know that this late in the day, that's an incredible accomplishment. Darren Smith has his work cut out for him.
Out of Dry Ridge, Kentucky, a Ford. This is the guy that pulls in 2 classes, Brett, and he's not doing bad in this one.
No, not with an extra ton on that tractor to meet the class weight, but it's going to hurt him. As you can see, he didn't change the horsepower any when he changed the weight.
No, he didn't. 279 feet will not match the full pull of Coleman Wheatley. We'll see if this man can. Mark Peisig from Unity, Wisconsin.
Peisig was lined up in the center of the course, but now he's trying to steer it back over to the right-hand side as the driver would see it. It may work. He's right down there at the finish.
But not across the finish line. He'll settle for 295 feet. Now, our next driver is an international driver, Thomas Peterson from Malmö, Sweden.
Well, I guess the obvious question is what is a nice guy from Sweden tractor pulling in Indiana for?
Well, as I said, it's just a new experience for me. I had this summer just my business made me just to come over here also. So we do tractor pulling a lot back home, but this is different. We only pull in the weekends, and here it's all every day. So I like this.
I guess you would. I mean, this is a puller's dream in the summertime in the Midwest. And I'll tell you, this is so big over in Europe. It picked up in the early 1970s, and it's been just unbelievably popular over there. And this guy knows what he's doing. Peterson is going to take it way down there, Ted.
Watch him steer that tractor carefully, trying to find the good dirt. He'll finally stop at 280 feet. We'll be back with more after this. Flowing into the night at the Jasper Pulling Series. From Wabash, Indiana, we're watching the 7,500-pound super stock tractors.
Do you believe in the old days they used to tune those tractors by those smoke rings, Ted? If you could get them pumping out on a regular basis, that meant the compression was even in all the cylinders. Now, here's John Pfeiffer from the center of the automotive racing universe, Connorsville, Indiana, where they got drag racers, oval track racers, and this guy is one of the best in the tractor class.
Pfeiffer has won 2 points titles in the Pro Stock division, not being contested here tonight. Serious contender for this Jasper Points Championship, but not tonight. 275 feet. Our next puller will be Nick Hicks from Seymour, Tennessee, with his 4010 John Deere. He's won a special award, as Bill Stevens explains.
Well, the Magic Mix Best Appearing Award here at Wabash goes to this beautiful 1961 John Deere tractor that belongs to Nicholas Hicks of Seymour, Tennessee. It runs in the 7,500-pound super stock tractor class. It has a John Deere 1,500 horsepower twin turbocharged engine in it, but that's not why it won the award. Obviously, it's the appearance. A beautiful John Deere green paint job, beautifully detailed in the cockpit, and of course we see polished alloy wheels on racing machines all the time, but rarely anyone that big, 32 inches in diameter. Now, the truck that pulls this tractor to the events is also part of the Best Appearing Award. There's a great-looking 1963 Mack B61 flatbed. All in all, a terrific-looking package.
Our congratulations go out to Nick Hicks, who incidentally, Brett, is the 5-time Tennessee state pulling champion.
Yeah, he's dominated in the volunteer state. Listen to the RPMs. Look at the speed of the exhaust out of that single pipe.
Unbelievable the amount of horsepower they get out of a 4-cylinder engine.
He's keeping the front end down again, but, oh, you see the tires start to break loose. It's like ice down there. That won't be good enough. But I'll tell you what, coming up next is the point leader here in ATP pulling.
I'm standing next to what might be called the heavy cruisers of tractor pulls. This is a 7,500-pound class super stock tractor. It belongs to Kenneth Hale of Estill Springs, Tennessee. It's called Night Trouble. But there ain't no trouble figuring out why this tractor is so successful. A 436 cubic inch engine in this international tractor, making about 1,800 horsepower. Now, the other thing about this tractor you should know, that currently it's #1 in points on the tour. Night Trouble, trouble is right for the competition.
That's incredible, isn't it? 400-plus cubic inches of four-cylinder.
Another Tennessee tractor, and they're doing very well from the Volunteer State in the 7,500-pound class.
Hale has moved the sled a little bit to the driver's left of the center. Not many people have been using the left-hand side of the course, Ted.
Look at him build. The RPM's up now. Here he comes, and that front end is pretty well down on the ground.
Going way over to the left-hand side. He's looking for fresh dirt. But it's just getting tough to get past that last 40 feet. It's really broken up down there.
268 feet, nowhere near a full pull. But the fans like it anyway, Brett.
That they do. And coming up, Bill Stevens with another neat piece he found in the pits.
I'm standing next to the 7,500-pound Superstock tractor that belongs to Bill Hurt of Ohio. And it's a 1961 Alice Chalmers called Runnin' Bear 3. Not only has it been running bare, it has been running strong and running for a long time.
Originally, it's a D21, a 1961 model, serial number 373. So it dates back, let's go back, 35 years, something like that. And we acquired it as a farm tractor at Stilesville Implement Auction in 1975. It was originally put together as a pulling tractor by Danny and Marvin Bob, the Bob brothers, which, let's go back to the early days of the national organizations, and they pulled it as a pulling tractor for a couple years, and then they sold it through the implement auction as a farm tractor. And since then, we've put a piece or two on it each year for the last 20 years plus, and made it into what it is today.
I know. I just don't look like I belong behind the wheel of this huge tractor. But for some reason, and I don't know what it is, kind of gotten attached to this big machine.
I can kind of picture Bill doing the South 40, can't you, Ted?
I'm not so sure about that, but let's take a picture right now. Bill Hurt, look at the twin stacks on that thing and the smoke pouring off that tractor.
It's interesting that one side is darker exhaust than the other. The turbos are not working evenly. One's hotter than the other, and that may be what caused him to dig in that early.
Good observation, Brett. He'll stop at 258 feet. One final puller coming up, and it's a John Deere Robert Galloway from Strawberry Plains, Tennessee. That's a suburb of Knoxville.
If Galloway can make it past 270 feet on this pull, he is accomplishing something, because this is one tricky racetrack right now.
He calls this thing the Hulk, very appropriately named. 3 turbochargers working.
Right down the center, but oh boy, you can see the left side spinning harder than the right side there for a minute. He got into some loose stuff. Still a good pull, 284 feet. You can hear the crowd cheering for him. That's impressive.
Well, that Indiana rascal, Coleman Wheatley, is the winner in the 7,500-pound tractor class. Hey, a pretty tough fight tonight. You had to work for this one.
Yes, that was a good class of tractors. It was some of the best. I know there's better tractors around, but as a whole, that was a heck of a class, and you had to do what I did to get it done. You had to work for it.
The winning run really came together for you?
Yes, I felt comfortable. I changed my weights a couple times back there in the back, and after I watched a couple of guys, I pulled early enough that it's kind of hard to say, but evidently we set it up right because we came through for us.
You still won't show us the engine, though?
Still won't show you my engine.
All right, Coleman. We'll be back with the wild 4-wheel drive vehicles. Says the Jasper Summer Nationals from Wabash, Indiana. And with more on our next class, the most popular, here's Bill Stevens.
Yeah, the difference between the 2-wheel drive trucks and the 4-wheel drive trucks as far as the rules go far beyond how many wheels can be driven. There's a displacement limit on the 4-wheel drive trucks, 750 cubic inches. The 4-wheel drive trucks cannot be supercharged where the 2-wheel drive trucks can be. 4-wheel drives are injected or carbureted, however, they can run on alcohol. And these are real racing engines. They cost between $40,000 and $50,000. A difference in the transmissions. 2-wheel drive trucks usually run 4 speeds. The 4-wheel drive trucks usually run 1 or 2-speed transmissions. What do they have in common? By the time they reach the 300-foot mark on this course, they'll have 50,000 pounds of weight tugging on the back end.
An excellent description of the class. And engine development in this class, Ted, is very similar to IHRA Pro Stock Drag Racing. These are real-life torquey mountain motors. That's what they're looking for, torque.
And we should explain you're watching a pull-off. We had 8 competitors with a full pull, so now we're into the pull-off. This is Jared Chaston from Salem, Indiana with his Spellbound. He pulls, Brett, 290 feet. And remember, they just increased the weight in that sled.
Yeah, up to 50,000 pounds. And this class is so unbelievably close in competition. This is just like pro stock in drag racing. This truck, Gary Sellen's Red Hot machine out of Nebraska, won 3 national championships. Dave Bamber out of St. Louis, Missouri drives it now because Sellen is actually one of the Bigfoot team drivers. This Ford had one of the first 600 cubic inch engines in this sport.
The mark to beat was 290. He pulls 274 feet, so that'll put him in second place. The mark to beat, 290 feet. Remember, we're in a pull-off. Each of these trucks have already had a full pull. Out of Elizabethtown, Kentucky, here comes Harry Owen.
Well, all you have to do is listen to that sound and know he's never going to get that much weight moving again, Ted.
Speaking of weight, it's on the front end. I wonder how they go about adding weight to the front end. We asked Bill Stevens to check that out for us.
Well, Ted, since you asked, here's the story on the weight that you find on the front of these four-wheel drive modified pickup trucks. This is the truck of Lem Friday. He has an adjustable unit up front. This has a trap door in it. In fact, there's one on each side, and lead weights go down inside. He says he usually runs about 2,000 pounds just in this unit alone. That leaves 4,200 pounds for the rest of the truck to make the 6,200-pound minimum. The engine weighs 1,000 pounds. That means there's 3,200 pounds left for the rest of the vehicle, including driver. There is so much weight bias toward the front of these trucks that these guys tell me that one person could lift the rear end of this truck by himself.
But, of course, there's 50,000 pounds connected to the rear end of the truck, and the reason there's so much of it on the front end is so that gravity helps you get traction. You're trying to smash that truck into the dirt so the tires have something to hook up to. When you don't have that weight on the front end, that thing will just flop around like a flounder, Ted.
This is Lem Friday Sr. That's significant, from Springfield, Missouri, his 1994 Ford.
Got a little fire going there, I think.
He pulls 247 feet. We'll have more of the four-wheel drive trucks when we return. Welcome back to the Jasper Summer Nationals, coming to you from the Wabash County Fairgrounds. We're in the middle of a pull-off of the 6,200-pound modified four-wheel drive truck class right now. And our next puller, Jim Lyons, we saw him earlier in the program, Brett.
Look how far over to the left-hand side of the course he is. Lyons tried this in our two-wheel drive class, and it didn't help him any. He's staying with it this time, though.
He will not make the 290 feet, however. The tire's spinning. And with more about those tires, let's go to Bill Stevens.
Well, in just about any motorsport, how well you do comes down to where the rubber meets the road, and it's no different in truck pulling. These tires on this truck right here, made by Dick Seepeck, although several manufacturers make them, they cost $1,100 a pair, but you just don't buy them and put them on the truck. Once you got them, you got to do a little work to them. The drivers say they bake them, they put heat into them, that makes them harder, and they cut them. That means that they design their own tread patterns. If you let somebody else do it, it could cost as much as another $600. But these guys that run here in the truck pulling have their own little tricks of the trade when it comes to designing their own treads. A lot of them do it themselves. And, oh, by the way, you know those really big tires on the pulling tractors? They're $5,000 a set. How many sets do you want, guys?
Mark me down for none, Bill. How about you, Brett?
Well, you know, one of the aspects of personality of this class are the different tread patterns you see on every truck. Every team, including the fast brake machine, has their own idea of what pattern's going to work with their engine combination.
And I'm sure Gary Varner would like to see this one work for him. He finally spins to a stop at only 275 feet. Remember, the mark to beat is 290.
The next puller coming up is going to be interesting. Earlier we saw Dick McPherson use, and in the literal sense of the word, his son to determine how good the track was. He watched his son pull, then he made changes to his machine. Well, it's going to be the other way around. Here's Lem Friday Jr. His dad has already run. He has more knowledge about the course than anybody else in this class, so if anybody this late in the competition is going to beat that 290-foot pull by Jared Chaston, it's going to be this kid, Ted.
This guy has a great reputation, too. He won at Chapel Hill, Tennessee, and again at Bowling Green, Ohio in 1994. Always finishes in the top 10 in the nation.
Big Ford, shotgun Hemi power. Like I said, this thing has knowledge. Knowledge is power. If he knows more about the track than anybody else, he should be able to get farther unless the track is just impassable.
Well, let's see if Dad passed on some of that knowledge as he experimented for Lem. Look at the smoke pouring out from underneath that car.
Missed it.
271 feet is not enough. One puller to go. Welcome back to the Jasper Summer Nationals from Wabash, Indiana. We're in the pull-off of the 6,200-pound modified four-wheel drive truck class, and we have one puller yet to pull, and it's an unusual truck.
This one's a freak. A 55 Chevy pickup with a 705 cubic inch fuel-injected Ford engine. All the way over to the left-hand side. He's looking for the cleanest, hardest dirt he can find. It's already bouncing, Ted.
And that's a very bad sign. Brett looks like that he will stop way short of the 290 mark. He'll settle for just over 250 feet. That's the last puller. That means our winner will be Jared Chaston from Salem, Indiana. We'll talk to him in just a minute. Right now, we want to remind you this coverage has been brought to you by Jasper Engines and Transmissions and by Valco Products of Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, it's been a great pull. Our winner will be Jared Chaston from Salem. As we said, Bill Stevens is trying to track him down right now as the capacity crowd begins to leave the stadium.
Took a little while. Looked like nobody wanted this thing. Finally, you had to put it away.
Oh, I tell you what, after that first pass, I was really beginning to wonder. I just barely scrape it out, and all of a sudden everybody starts putting 20 and 30 foot on me. I'm like, what did I get myself into coming up here? But the crew made a lot of changes, and before the pull-off come back, and truck ran a lot better and hooked a lot better, and put us where we needed to be, thank goodness.
It looked to us like the last 50 feet of the course was obviously the toughest. Did you think you could have gotten that full pull on that last run?
Nah, the sled was set so heavy, I was fortunate enough to make it how far I did, let alone the full pull. I mean, we was 10, 15 foot from there.
Well, you went far enough to win. Enjoy your victory.
Thank you.
Our congratulations to the winner of all four categories here, and let's take a look at how they finished.
Well, the Internationals dominated the 5,500-pound category. In the 6,200 super modified truck, the blown trucks, we saw that Dick McPherson come from behind charge. It was awesome. 7,500 super stockers, Coleman Wheatley, who still won't tell us what's in that Case International. And the kid deserves a pat on the back there in the 6,200 four-wheel drive trucks. That was pretty neat.
And that changes the point standings.
Well, Jim Lyons lost the points lead to Gary Varner, and actually the top points earners didn't fare that well in the 6,200-pound truck class here. Meanwhile, in the 6,200-pound blown two-wheel drives, McPherson's win here tonight only put him farther ahead of Danny Sullivan. And in the 5,500 Superstock tractor class, Darren Smith, who didn't perform that well this evening, still holds on to the lead there. In the 7,500-pound Superstock tractor class, Robert Galloway's fourth-place finish moved him up on Ken Hale because Hale fell all the way down to 7th. So that means Galloway has a shot at this thing this year.
This is Ted Jones. On behalf of Brett Kepner and Bill Stevens, thanks for joining us from Wabash, Indiana. So long, everyone.